Hey, this is a very outdated reaction because I was streaming a lot and not uploading anything to YouTube. So keep in mind that my opinion might change already, or this topic is just not relevant anymore. Now on to the video. I kind of knew that this is coming at some point. Didn't expect it so soon though. And I have no idea what this video is about, but the Communist Manifesto summary.
A specter is haunting Europe. The specter of communism.
So, do I need to try to analyze every single quote?
If we're going to summarize the Communist Manifesto, it's important we briefly cover the context in which
I did hear about the manifesto. Like, it is a word that I know exists. And I saw this face at some point before. I think because of a video from Venemelon. Isabel messes everything up or something like that. Well, yeah, Isabel from Animal Crossing. It's an animation. It's very cute and dorky. And at the end there was something with this face that we have a lot of time talking about. A lot of time. This one.
I even wrote all my ideas down.
That one.
Oh, Isabel. Isabel.
Perfect Village Manifesto. That's the only connection to the Workman Manifesto I had. Sorry for that little sidetrack. I know that was not important at all.
Which the Communist Manifesto was written. In 1847, when Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels wrote the piece, socialism and communism were not clearly defined concepts. Everyone had their own eclectic ideas about what these terms meant, all trying to address the problems which had been produced by a fully blooming capitalist society, problems we're still dealing with today. The only thing that was commonly understood by these terms.
Why is this blurred out? Does YouTube know, or does YouTube understand there is text and blurs it out for some reason because it's too political or whatever?
Was something beyond the present state of things. And for people in high society at the time whose wealth and property owed its existence to the present state of things, socialism and communism were vague and threatening concepts.
It's because they didn't have real meaning back then. It's also a typo.
Especially communism, which had developed a strong association with the working class emerging at the time who owned nothing and had no strong ties to the current order. Now, what Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels set out to do in the Communist Manifesto was to properly define what that something beyond the present state of things meant. And they do something very interesting. As opposed to laying out grand principles of eternal truth and universal morality upon which the future society shall be constructed, Marx and Engels point out that to accurately understand what can come next, you need to understand how and why human societies change and understand the material conditions that exist right now. And although both Marx and Engels use the terms socialism and communism interchangeably to refer to a society.
Yes, I'm kind of tipped off why this is blurred, but whatever. Socialism and communism, it is a little bit different. Not interchangeable, like different, similar.
Beyond capitalism, they adopt the label communism specifically because of its unique association with the working class, who, as we'll come to see, are absolutely key to understanding and achieving.
It's blurred to represent a wishy-washy meaning. Yeah, I mean, because no one knows exactly, at this time, no one really knows exactly what it means. Which also includes me. I kind of know what it means, but not sure
a post-capitalist society. The working class is key to understanding what communism is and how to achieve it. The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggle.
As he said, those words were just a sign to say I don't like capitalism. Okay. What is this now? The history of all
hitherto existing society.
Old English, it's so weird. The history of all until now existing society is the history of class struggles. So basically, everything was...
Is the history of class struggle. This is their
Everything-
theory of how human societies change, known as historical materialism.
Yeah, everything in the past is kind of a hustle, kind of a difficult thing, so we change to make it better.
The history of human societies is propelled by the conflict of material interests between the classes. And this whole first section is dedicated to tracing history using a historical materialist approach. So we have to understand historical materialism if this section is going to make any sense. Historical materialism starts from the fact that for societies to exist, they need to be able to produce things. The
So far that makes sense.
necessities of life, like food and shelter. Without production, there is no society. The things we use to produce things, which would include things like tools, land, minerals, machinery, are known as the means of production. How people relate to the means of production gives us their class position, and with that, their objective material interests. A farmer,
Okay.
whose relation to the land and tools is ownership, is going to have an objective material interest in good weather, good crop yields, minimal wear on tools, etc. Now let's say there's a lord who actually owns the land and tools, and in exchange for allowing the farmers to farm safely on his land, the lord takes a portion of the crop yields.
Would this be... yeah, okay. I guess...
It is in the material interest of the lord to take as much of the yield as possible.
Is this like a direct comparison to a landlord, like loaning fields out to farmers or something?
While the material interest of the farmers is to keep as much of the yield as possible. Here we have an irreconcilable conflict of material interests between the classes. Our cultures, laws, moralities, ideologies, religions, wars, coups, revolutions, and so on are all products, in the final analysis,
Don't throw around with so many words that are hard to understand.
Here we have an irreconcilable conflict of material interests between the classes. Our cultures, laws, moralities, ideologies, religions, wars, coups, revolutions, and so on are all products, in the final analysis, of our society's classes and their struggles to advance their material interests. Struggles between different classes, and struggles between different factions of the same class who hold particular material interests that can come into conflict with one another. The conflict of material interests between the lord and farmers, oppressor and oppressed, has no resolution under the current order. A fight that each time ended, either in a revolutionary reconstitution of society at large, or in the common ruin of the contending classes. So the oppressing class struggles to hold together this relationship of exploitation.
A fight that each time ended. Okay, a fight that each time ended. Either in a revolutionary reconstitution of society at large, or in the common ruin of the contending classes. What do you know about history? Any kind of society in history? Not a lot. I know that the Maya don't exist anymore, but that has other reasons. I know that the Egypts don't exist anymore, but that also has other reasons. This is about slavery? Wait.
No resolution under the current order. A fight that each time ended, either in a revolutionary reconstitution of society at large, or in the common ruin of the contending classes. So the oppressing class struggles to hold together this relationship of exploitation for as long as possible.
How do they frame it? Oppressing. There. Oppressing class. Those are the people with the power who try to exploit people with less power, I guess. In federalism, there were people serving a king or something in order to be protected and able to live. There's always two classes. I mean, at least two classes. There are probably more sometimes. Most of the time. But at least two classes.
The oppressing class struggles to hold together this relationship of exploitation for as long as possible. But the struggle can only end in one of two ways. Either the oppressed succeeds in overthrowing the oppressors and establishing a new order that advances and enshrines their material interests, or both competing classes are brought to ruin somehow. Marx and Engels then turn to the transition from feudalism to capitalism using a historical materialist approach.
There's always one being oppressed and one oppressing. What the heck is feudalism? The dominant society system in medieval Europe, in which the nobility held lands from the crown in exchange for military service. And vassals were in turn tenants of the nobles, with the peasants were obliged to live on their lands and give him homage. Basically kings and stuff. Basically, in order not to be robbed / killed as a normal person, you had to serve some lord. Okay. Good thing I wasn't alive back then. I don't know a lot about the medieval times. That's too far in the past. Again, 2 classes. Yeah, there are 2 classes. I mean, I guess even knights and stuff who did serve the lords are in the serving class. Okay.
Using a historical materialist approach. In feudal society, as with previous societies, we have a complicated arrangement of many different classes, but it's from a small class of town dwellers that the modern capitalist class develops from, also known as the bourgeoisie. These town dwellers made their living from commerce and trade, using their modestly accrued wealth to generate more. They had a keen material interest in developing navigational knowledge, the study of commerce, shipbuilding, bookkeeping, and so on. The discovery of America and foreign conquest opened up new lucrative goods to these town dwellers, spurring an even more intense interest in developing the means of exchange, navigation, communication, and transportation. In the search to yield more wealth from amassed fortunes, these merchants begin to take over industry itself, investing in socialized workshops and the development of the instruments of production, outcompeting traditional individual artisans due to the superior efficiency of socialized production. As the instruments of production developed with the development of the bourgeoisie, they began to come into conflict with the existing relations of production in feudal society, basically property laws, and into conflict with the aristocracy, who had a material interest in maintaining these feudal relations of production.
So blue is capitalist now and purple for feudalism. I see. Yeah, capitalism is... I do remember that. It is better than for feudalism. Yeah, I guess because feudalism is basically that only one person has everything and everyone else only works for them. Okay, one group. One group has everything and everyone else is working for that group.
For example, a convoluted and arbitrary feudal judicial system, although great for local lords who enjoyed special privileges and control over local laws, hamstrung trade for the bourgeoisie.
Middle finger in here. Not regulated, no law, etc. Wow. It really was a rough time back then, I guess.
And a myriad of internal tariffed borders, although great for local lords.
Is there anywhere on Earth that still has feudalism? I guess some monarchs that still exist. Is it dictatorship? Not necessarily, right? Not really. It's not really possible. Yeah, because there are too many humans at this point for this to be even feasible anymore.
Inflated prices for the bourgeoisie. Not only this, but much of the population were still peasants. And if the bourgeoisie wanted to continue producing cheaper and cheaper commodities, the supply of labor had to be increased, which meant the traditional peasant-lord relationship had to be disrupted. Here we have the productive power of society, society's forces of production that have been developed to a point where they are now held back and cramped by the relations of production.
So, in a way, the evolution of capitalism destroyed the feudalism system.
We have a reactionary class whose interest is to maintain,
which is a good way to evolve, but still capitalism bad.
The current order for as long as possible, despite it holding back production, and we have a revolutionary class who has a material interest in fully utilizing the forces of production, a material interest in abolishing the current order, and
Just like feudalism broke slavery in some cases. Huh, interesting. I never thought about it that way. I guess you cannot go from step 1 to step 20. You have to get steps in between. Evolve things over time and stuff.
carrying out a revolutionary reconstitution of society. The English Revolution and most famously the French Revolution were such reconstitutions of society by the bourgeoisie.
Okay, I have no idea about the English Revolution, nor do I have any other idea about the French Revolution. Should I know more stuff about that? Or is he explaining it anyway?
Famously, the revolutionary reconstitution of society. The English Revolution and most famously the French Revolution were such reconstitutions of society by the bourgeoisie.
They abolished monarchs. Okay, so no more single person leaders, I see.
Political power from the aristocracy to abolish feudal relations and to enshrine capitalist relations of production. What are the capitalist relations of production anyways? Capitalists are those who privately own and control the means of production. They hire others to work on these means to produce products for a market to make a profit. Workers, also known as the proletariat, do not own the means of production. They work for a wage to live. Workers generate the value, and the capitalist seeks to take as much of the value as possible.
This is basically how most of Europe, at least, works at the moment. As far as I understand. I work for a loan. I don't own any... Okay, I do own a kitchen, but I do not own the kitchen where I work and stuff.
Paying the worker as little as possible.
The whole world is capitalist, by the
The
way.
worker
Okay.
seeks to keep as much of the value they generate in seeking higher wages.
Yeah, this balance has to be, is the most important, that's a very important thing for many people. You want to get paid, but people do not want to pay you fairly.
These are two diametrically opposed material interests in which there is no resolution under capitalism. Now, the capitalists, as we've seen, have played an incredibly revolutionary role in history.
Basically, there's a few select socialist states, but the vast majority is capitalist. No, wait. The problem is, I guess if not everyone jumps from capitalist to socialist or communist at the same time, the few people who started will have a really rough time at the beginning. They have the power monopoly. They decide basically, yes, it's difficult to start for a single. Thank you. This is exactly what happened with every socialist country. Soviet Union.
They've socialized production, tying all corners of the world together in a global web of industry and consumption, and they've revolutionized the instruments of production, creating tools and machinery capable of producing far beyond the necessary requirement to sustain society, with extreme efficiency through relatively simple.
That is why those countries were so awful. All had to suffer massive boycott. Okay. Wait, I need to... Soviet Union, with every socialist country. But the world is not socialist at the moment, is it? Most of the world. Look at how bad the DDR was. Is a bad argument. That is a bad argument. Okay, I said something very smart. And then... Okay. This is exactly what happened with every socialist country. Soviet Union, DDR, Cuba... all had to suffer massive boycott from the majority capitalist world. And that is why those countries were so awful. That is why but look, okay. So, wait a second. Soviet Union and Cuba are socialist countries? Socialist states? And the DDR? No. Is it? The USSR was the first. Aha. Soviet Union. Lenin revolutionized it. Basically, Russia was feudal. And then Lenin was banished to Belgium. Okay, kinda understand. But when Germany sent Lenin back into Russia and started another civil war. Yeah, I know about a few. I know a few wars who started in Germany. The capitalist society emerging and managed to establish socialism. Now, right now, are we right now in a socialist world or in a capitalist world? I'm a little bit confused right now. In which time frame are we talking about? Because as far as Germany sent Lenin back into Russia, what do we just call capitalist? Bad?
As we've seen, have played an incredibly revolutionary role in history. They've socialized production, tying all corners of the world together in a global web of industry and consumption, and they've revolutionized the instruments of production, creating tools and machinery capable of producing far beyond the necessary requirement to sustain society, with extreme efficiency through relatively simple operations. But just as the forces of production were hampered by the feudal relations of production once before, now too the productive forces in capitalist society have developed to a point where they are constricted by the capitalist relations of production. The
how far back do we go?
Own and control the means of production. They hire others, political power from the aristocracy, to abolish feudal relations and to enshrine capitalist
So, okay, we are at
relations of production.
basically when capitalism starts being a thing. Privately own the means of production. That is capitalism, yes. Feudalism is... Okay, feudalism is everyone works for one person. Capitalism is everyone works for one person, but they get the stuff to work with. Like tools and whatever. Who owns the means of production today? Companies? It's exact. It is exactly the same.
Are
Okay.
the capitalist relations of production anyways? Capitalists are those who privately own and control the means of production. They hire others to work on these means to produce products for a market to make a profit. Workers, also known as the proletariat, do not own the means of production. They hire others to work on these means to produce products for a market to make a profit. Workers, also known as the proletariat,
Every of those societies we had were the same. Just different classes with the same role. Okay, interesting. I think slavery is not the same as capitalist working. Yeah, different conditions. Yeah, different conditions. That can be. I can understand that.
Do not own the means of production. They work for a wage to live. Workers generate the value, and the capitalist seeks to take as much of the value as possible, paying the worker as little as possible. The worker seeks to keep as much of the value they generate in seeking higher wages. These are two diametrically opposed material interests in which there is no resolution under capitalism. Now, the capitalists, as we've seen, have played an incredibly revolutionary role in history. They've socialized production, tying all corners of the world together in a global web of industry and consumption, and they've revolutionized the instruments of production.
So, industrialization now. Where are we today? We are far beyond the industrial revolution. At least here in Europe, I would say. Social. Societal structure. Socialism-ish? No. Yeah? Maybe. I mean, it's on the... We are still kind of in the... Who owns the means of production? Still the companies, which makes this... what is the word again? Capitalism. Who owns factories minus housing? It's still a capitalism area or time. That's still a thing. Maybe, I mean, some places are still owned by the state and stuff, but mostly the companies' power. So we are not socialistic here, we are still capitalist. Let's continue
creating
here.
tools and machinery capable of producing
Yep,
far
that's where we
beyond
are right now.
the necessary requirement to sustain society with extreme efficiency through relatively simple operations. But just as the forces of production were hampered by the feudal relations of
Okay. Feudalism, feudalism, workers produce more than the feudalism supports. Feudalism breaks. Capitalism gets created. Now the workers produce want more money than the capitalist system is willing to provide. So capitalism
production once before,
needs to break.
now too the productive forces in capitalist society have developed to a point where they are constricted by the capitalist relations of production. The productive power of society is now being held back by the capitalist order, and I'll show you what I mean by this. Under capitalism, production is carried out for private profit. As products are produced more and more efficiently, their cost falls and can be sold cheaper to steal buyers from other competing capitalists.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as competing capitalists catch up and manage to sell their products at this cheaper price, the profit rate has fallen, and there is a scramble to lower costs again. Innovation now becomes the enemy of the capitalist in the long run.
Kind of makes sense, but isn't there a saying like I don't know the English phrase, but in German it's like something like Konkurrenz belebt den Markt or something like that. Isn't innovation a good thing? I mean, if the prices sink, more people buy, but if the prices of production sink and you don't adjust the prices, you get more profit. That is probably the goal of the capitalist people. That is what we call capitalist propaganda. Okay.
Fight back against this tendency of the rate of profit to fall, capitalists can monopolize markets, artificially restricting supply.
That's already happening, isn't it? If a company, I don't know, has a monopoly on something, and there is a small company doing a similar thing, that big company is just, I give you $200,000 and now you're mine. Dun dun dun. No concurrence. No no competition anymore. Only one company doing stuff. And it's way easier to analyze why capitalism is only temporarily possible. Let's go quickly through it. Also, yeah, let's do that. Also, isn't there a law that prevents a monopoly on a product or something? What do you need in capitalism? Profit, yeah, money. A lot of money. And with a lot of money, I can buy off or buy out all the competitors. How do I get profit? 3 ways. I produce things and sell them at a value that is more worth than producing it. I pay my workers less. I don't know what the third way is. But basically, get money, don't spend money. I could try innovating stuff. Expanding the market. Okay. Yeah. Let's go with those points. Expanding the market, like not only Europe, but like sell our stuff like worldwide. But once I'm worldwide, that's the limit. Exploit natural resources. Exploit natural resources, oil, gas, wood, etc. This is also limited. And in my opinion, one of the worst things to do that, to profit. 3, exploit the workers. Unlimited. I think there is a limit on how you can exploit workers, but okay. Into the last century. We lived so great in the 1950s and further. Now think about it. Because every market is pretty much worldwide. Internet happened and stuff. You know, everyone can sell. If I want to sell something to, if I as a company want to sell something to, I don't know, Norway or somewhere in America, I can do that. Globalization. Yes. To insane industrialization worldwide. Exploiting of natural resources. Yeah, one of the worst things for global warming, but that's a big step. This is why people think capitalism is good. Yeah, I guess. I guess people think that. I mean, globalization is not bad. The second one, exploit of natural resources, the word exploit is in there. I can see how this is bad. And probably exploit of workers is also pretty bad. Not everyone on the world has the same knowledge, you know. Now we have the edge ray. No more market expanding. And we soon can't exploit natural resource at all anymore. What does this mean? Ooh, oh, I see where you're going for, what you're going for. Now the workers have to suffer. They will start exploiting the workers because natural exploits are not possible anymore at some point. And globalization is so easy and maximizable that it's pretty much done in a second if you really want to. And that is what we see already. High rents, antisocial structure. True. I thought the exploit of the workers was more like, okay, instead of producing my books here in Europe ethically in a printing station somewhere, blah blah blah, I print my books in Bangladesh or something for like a hundredth of the price. We exploit the global south always, Africa, etc. This also contributes to our living conditions. But now we are at point 2. I mean, I know that the capitalism affected the renting prices and everything. I was not aware that this was going this path. When I exploit the worker, what happens? Either the work gets worse. No, that's because, okay, the loan that I get, the money that I get for working will get lower. So same work, less pay. Or worse working conditions. That's also a thing. Longer hours, etc. I stop working or I look for something else. Or I start starving. Either I start having really bad conditions and suffer, like hunger, whatever. Either I die or I revolute. Okay, those are the two extremes. Yeah. If I put it to the most extreme sides, yeah, I die or I revolute. I could try to work somewhere else, but actually everyone is gonna start to exploit the workers. And of course, if I quit this job just hoping for a better one, at some point it's not feasible anymore. Whether at some point we gonna get to the extreme, whether it takes longer or shorter is irrelevant. Okay, and the next step after capitalism is back to feudalism. I'm joking. The prosper pressed too much and made a new system. Okay, realistically, after capitalism, we should stray for the best thing possible.
And hiking prices well above their cost, completely putting to waste the productivity of society. They can also monopolize intellectual rights, holding back the general adoption of innovative technology. But none of this really matters when the
Is that not already the case with patents and stuff? Patents are such a bullshit system, in my opinion. It gatekeeps every sort of innovation from there on into the future. It's so useless. We hate patents. Yeah, I hate patents. Patents are so stupid. It gatekeeps information or just a better way to do things. If I invent a way to make plastic, for example, not toxic for the environment, which is, I think, by the way, actually a thing that happened. Why the fuck do I put a patent on that just to make tons of money or gatekeep the world from doing that? Who makes laws, Ray? The state? Earlier you said, but isn't that illegal, or isn't there a law against that? Who makes law, Ray? Who makes the law? I don't know. I don't know who does the laws. I do know that there is, at least in Europe, I forgot the name, constitution stuff, politicians. Oh, yeah, politicians being corrupt, that's a bad thing. Constitution was, by the way, a wrong word. What word was I looking for? Either the rich pay them, or they own a company that benefits from a law. I mean, and that is corrupt. And that is illegal, but no one does anything about this. If a politician makes something, that is corrupt. Anyone else doing something corrupt, into jail immediately.
vast majority of workers don't have the money to buy the products. Every capitalist seeks to lower labor costs as much as possible, but still wants buyers. Debt and the hyper-exploitation of the global south can help bridge this contradiction, but it's not particularly stable. As productive industries become less and less of an attractive investment due to their slim return rates, capitalists increasingly swarm to invest in unproductive financial markets and speculative bubbles. Resources wasted in these financial schemes and bubbles are resources that could have been invested to further technological development.
I'm not really sure how the stock market works at all, and I really do not want to figure that out, actually. There's money, you see. A big problem is people don't understand that even if their lives are good now, it will get awful, but they don't understand that they always lived good. They didn't hate the system. Actually, we go a little bit into stock market later. Oh my god, I don't want to know about the stock market. It's so many numbers. It confuses me. And every time I see a graph like that, it reminds me of those, "Oh, I'm an alpha male, I make $10,000 a day," people. Komm in die WhatsApp-Gruppe or something like that. And that pisses me off. You need to hate how things are now, even if you aren't dying. True. It's not that deep. Okay.
Further technological development. When these speculative bubbles periodically pop and capitalists no longer see profit to be made, capitalist society falls into economic crisis.
Did this actually already happen somewhere? Did at some point somewhere capitalists already, how did they phrase it?
When these speculative bubbles periodically pop and capitalists no longer see profit to be made, capitalist society falls into economic crisis. In these crises,
Economic crisis. I think there was actually. What?
Is a great part not only of the existing products, but also of the previously created productive forces are periodically destroyed. The most vulgar expression of the capitalist relations of production, holding back and conflicting with the forces of production. But not
Isn't that what strikes are for? A crisis so far. Economy crash late 2000s. COVID. Ah, okay, that's not exactly what strikes are for, I guess. Not only has
the bourgeoisie forged the weapons that bring death to itself, it has called into existence the men who are to wield those weapons. All previous classes.
During the debate about banning strikes for people working in... Don't do that, first of all. Second of all, pay them more. They debate about banning strikes for people working in critical infrastructure. What about... Oh my gosh, they destroy themselves. That's like nuking yourself. Don't... Oh my gosh. Once it doesn't fit into profit interest anymore, it's falling apart. How can you do... How can anyone do that? It's a critical... If someone is not happy, they will strike. If they are not allowed to strike, they just quit. And then it's more mandatory to get people there. So... Oh my gosh. What the fuck? That is messed up. 200 years old. We knew all that 200 years ago. Crazy.
Is outcompeted by capitalists, and those classes deprived of their means of subsistence have sunk into the ranks of the working class. This continuously growing propertyless class now constitutes the overwhelming majority of capitalist society. Having used a historical materialist analysis, we can now understand what communism is.
Okay, he's gonna explain it, I think. Like, I mean, I kind of know already, but he's gonna explain it now. 173 years to be exact. But still, more than 150 years ago, we knew all this. Still, we run into this dead end of capitalism. Oh my gosh. We need to... Okay. Hypothetically. Nah. I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know, it happened already. Yep. Okay, how far does this book go though? Does the book end in capitalism? Does it end in communism? Or is there anything after communism? Communist thing?
Understand what communism is. It is in the working class's material interest to abolish private ownership over the means of production, putting an end to the private appropriation of their generated value, and to establish common ownership of these productive instruments and resources.
Common ownership. So everyone owns every company.
Such that the surplus value generated by the workers is owned and controlled by the workers. Everyone's relation to the means of production will be equal, and thus everyone's material interests will be the same. A classless society is possible.
Why would I want... I mean, okay, in this society, I would own a light bulb. In a company. I would own a kiln. I would own energy that I can use to power a tractor, whatever. Even if I don't want to. The text says more. A little of the details now that aren't in his video. Okay, let's go back a little.
It is in the working class's material interest to abolish private ownership over the means of production, putting an end to the private appropriation of their generated value.
Okay, no company leader anymore.
And to establish common ownership of these productive instruments and resources, such that the surplus value generated by the workers is owned and controlled by the workers. Everyone's relation to the means of production.
Every time we develop into a new structure now, we just replaced the classes with new ones. We abolished the oppressors. Okay, a group from the oppressed and made them the oppressors. Kind of, yes. Unless no one is getting oppressed, I think that's bound to happen again. Because even if they are a little oppressed, give it 10 years, they get oppressed more. Give it 20 years, they get oppressed more. Until the point where it tips again and then it repeats. Why would a classless society happen after capitalism? other than the, it's because unities, no, other than the other, it's subgroups inside the worker class die. Subgroups inside the worker class dissolve in capitalism, you say. Okay, let me scroll a little up. I need to read a bunch of stuff still. Why isn't there 50 more class societies? You said there are always 2, but okay. Let's mention it. It is because other than the other, capitalism unites the classes. The subgroup inside the worker class die. At some point we won't care if you're gay, black, or woman or whatever. We will care that you're one of us, a worker and oppressed. Because we have no other chance, the subgroup inside the worker class dissolve in capitalism. There are always 2 classes inside a class society. What I mean is, if feudalism followed slavery, capitalism followed feudalism, why aren't there 50 more societies with 2 classes? If you have a rule set where you only allow 2 classes, I think there is not too much variety here. Feudalism, capitalism, and maybe a few others, but 50? Come up with 50 different ways to group to put all people in 2 groups. They're kind of difficult. It's because the subgroups are dissolved in capitalism. So essentially we always just took one subgroup from the oppressed, made them oppressors. This can happen infinitely as long as subgroups exist. But will it happen infinitely? At some point, it just loops like we had. Maybe it turns from capitalism to some other ism, and at some point, or because the subgroup that throws over the system there goes back to capitalism or whatever. As I said, capitalism dissolves subgroups, and from capitalism dissolves subgroups. What do you mean with capitalism dissolves subgroups? I don't understand that. That is why socialism follows capitalism. Why does capitalism dissolve a subgroup? In itself destroys the differences inside the classes. Doesn't treat one group other than another. True. It only differentiates between people with a lot of money and without a lot of money. True, only the poor won't exploit you more or less because you're white at some point. Now it does. Maybe in the future, not anymore. Okay, I start to understand. Now. Kind of correct. It feels a little bit weird though, because I don't know if it's true, but I hear that discrimination amongst specific subgroups, and I don't mean people with less money, I mean gay or black or whatever, discrimination against those is rising, which is something I heard. Don't take that for granted, that for a word that is necessarily true. I don't know. But if that is the case, then capitalism is not doing a good job in uniting the subgroups. And it's because of fascism. Which is another thing we need to cover another time.
Production will be equal, and thus everyone's material resources, such that the surplus value generated by the workers is owned and controlled by the workers. Everyone's relation to the means of production will be equal, and thus everyone's material interests will be the same. A classless society is possible. This will require the political overthrow of the capitalist class and the establishment of a worker state.
Democracy in politics and democracy in economics. Wait, what? So people overthrow the democracy.
Will require the political overthrow of the capitalist class and the establishment of a worker state, in which the instruments of production and society's resources are put under the democratic control of the working people and capitalist resistance is put down. Following the democratization of the economy, the full productive power of society will be utilized and put towards raising the standard of living.
What if... Okay, let's ignore that. I think that society will kind of work with anything. The single person wouldn't have a lot to say in there. But hypothetically, what if there is a person who just doesn't want to work in the communist society? Just, I don't know, too lazy, antisocial, or whatever. Or just... There's probably a group of them then, right?
Living for all. Workers can be paid proportionately to the labor.
And another thing that the manifesto. Okay. Is there a copy of the manifesto in the internet to read at some point? Or somewhere for free? Maybe I read into that at some point. Poor, I never read. I never read books, and then I take that as the first book. I think about it, but it's probably also in English, and not only English, but Old English. Oh, that has to be so difficult to read. Karl Marx was German. Oh my gosh. Okay, then it's in Old German. But at least I understand Old German better than Old English. I guess I read it in the original language, which is either German or English, I assume.
They contribute. The more one works, the more one
I kind of missed
under
something.
the democratic control of the working people, and capitalist resistance is put down. Following the democratization of the economy, the full productive power of society will be utilized and put towards raising the standard of living for all. Workers can be paid proportionately to the labor they contribute. The more one works, the more one's paid.
That would be amazing. You know that work at the moment is paid, the longer you work, you get paid better. Maybe some companies track what you are doing and you get a extra little money. Where I work, we call this a bonus. But getting actually paid for what you do would be amazing. Then you would actually feel productive and want to be productive instead of stalling time when you're done. This is why communists see wage labor as another form of slavery.
A necessary portion of the total surplus value generated will be dedicated towards administrative costs, social programs, repair, and most importantly, towards research and development.
Why do people not want to work right now? Because the pay is shit. Or they have been socialized to be selfish. Either they are socially isolated to not work, or the pay is shit. I think that's the only two reasons why you not work. Or you can afford to not work. That's what all the super rich people do. They just wait for their capital to tenfold itself in 2 minutes or something. Socialism, we have a solution for that.
Fostering the further advancement of the forces of production. As the working classes one by one settle matters with their national bourgeoisie, the working classes may unite internationally, unifying the productive power of the entire globe. At a certain point of development, when
We take the socialization of children out of their family, which we already do a little, kindergarten, school, etc., and inside society as a whole. Well, in America, I don't know the exact stats, but quite a few people go into private schools, which is bullshit. Public school, making people belong to the society, making us all work together.
the forces of production have become so efficient and so ubiquitous, human society may enter a higher phase of communism, in which everyone does the work they can and takes what they need, from each according to their ability to each according to their need. a decrepit and feeble state, long with no antagonistic class to suppress, and no longer having to enforce to each according to their contribution, can complete its total withering away. But this higher phase of communism is not possible without that initial period of development, the lower phase of communism. Now the rest of the manifesto is a
If we knew that whole manifesto 150 years ago, why didn't we jump from? I mean, it's pretty difficult, but it would have been such a smart move to jump from step 0 to step 10. I grew up with society, it helped me, so I want to help it by working. I don't know if most people would have that enlightenment, even if society helps them a lot. What we already have, but with family. Knowledge is limited. It is very hard to individually understand this when you are propagandized into capitalism always. Yeah, I'm special. Thank you. But what do you mean? There will be even more people who understand the further living conditions worsen. The more people know about that stuff, the better it is. The people live in the system, the less people will hate it. I just hope that everyone will be better at some point.
A bit more historically specific, when forced to each according to their contribution, can complete its total withering away. But this higher phase of communism is not possible without that initial period of development, the lower phase of communism. Now the rest of the manifesto is a bit more historically specific to Marx and Engels' time, so we won't delve into it here, but luckily we've covered the important bits, namely historical materialism. Although the communist
The rest is irrelevant. That's half a minute, I'm gonna watch it anyway.
manifesto is the most widely known Marxist text, it's not a particularly good place to start if you're looking to get into Marxism. For that, I'd suggest reading Socialism, Scientific and Utopian, as well as Wage, Labor and Capital. Thank you to my patron.
Okay. Halim Alra? Thank you for that little compact manifesto. Now fascism. The rich know of this evolution. Fascism. They aren't dumb. Yeah. They split society. They try to inflict fear and too many emotion and whatever, and try to split them. Yeah, split society into groups. The more groups, the better for them. Yeah, antagonize people. Antagonizing people who are not working. So that is where we come in. Yeah, I need to educate myself before I can educate others. I think I know way more than I knew like a year or two ago. You beg of me, don't be lazy. I try to. Sometimes I am. And I don't talk to many people, even if I don't talk about politics. But okay. I'm scrolling through my home For You page on YouTube in hopes that I find a video that I can watch. Oh, once you run out of videos to suggest.